Hello and welcome to part 3 of this video series about converting data from Excel to SPSS and doing analysis in SPSS. So far we've imported the data, we've transformed a couple of text variables into numeric. We had these two questions were originally in text form in the Excel file, and we recoded them so that they are now numeric. And in SPSS, that means you've got a number for each label and a text description of each label. Unlike Excel, where you can either have one or the other, you can either have the word female or you could have the number 1, but you can't have both. In SPSS, you can have both, and that is one of the major advantages of SPSS, in fact, because it means you can do all your quantitative analysis, but you can also easily see what does each number actually stand for by just clicking this button here, toggling that will show you either the value, or that's the value, or the label for that value. You can have either. It doesn't affect the analysis which is turned on at any time. Doesn't matter. It's just so that you can decide which one is more useful for you to view at any time. So we converted those two text variables into numeric so that we now have all of the variables we need are in numeric form. So the two new numeric variables that we created, we can just drag them over to the left so that we just want to make sure that we've got all the variables we need together, and the string variables, that's the text variables, are over here because we won't be using those, and all the numeric variables that we will be using are here. We could go so far as to delete the two text variables, knowing that we won't be using them, and in this case I will do that just for clarity. But generally speaking, in practice, it's a good idea not to delete anything unless you really have to, because you never know when you might need to go back for that and check something. Okay, you've got the original Excel file ultimately that you could go back to, but that would mean moving back several steps in your work. So generally speaking, do not delete variables that you're not using in your SPSS file. Just move them to the end. So that means to the far right in data view, or to the bottom in the variable view, just so that you're always clear. If you've got two versions of a variable, one is text, one is numeric, you don't want to be confusing yourself all the time about which one to use. So just move all of the variables you are going to use into one sequence, as we've got here. And in this case, I say I've actually deleted the original text variables. So now we've got all of our variables in numeric form. So these ones that's just an ID number for a reference for each case. All of these are Likert scale questions. So that's values 1 to 5 on satisfaction, from very or extremely satisfied through to extremely dissatisfied. So those are all Likert scale, and this is age in years. That's a continuous variable, because ultimately there's no upper end on that. It could be any value from 1 through to well, there is no upper limit, so it's continuous variable. And then we've got the hours of employment per month. So again, that's a continuous variable. The respondent is asked how many hours a month do you work approximately, and that's just whatever they put in. So there's no upper limit on that. I suppose in practical terms there is a limit to the number of hours you could work in a month. It can't be more than the total number of hours in a month. But the point is it's a continuous variable anyway, so there's no theoretical upper limit on that number. And then we've got two what are known as categorical variables here. So they are numeric. We've just made them numeric, but they're called categorical because the levels in the variable. So that's on this one we've got 2 levels, yes or no, and on this one we've got 2 levels, male and female. So in a categorical variable, the levels cannot be put into a meaningful hierarchical order. So, yes is not higher than no, female is not higher than male, or vice versa. So they're categorical variables, which means the levels are just distinguished by a name. That's why they're also known as nominal variables. So the categories are only distinguished by a name, a form of words. Whereas in a numerical variable, the levels are distinguished quite clearly by a numerical value. And we can put these in a hierarchy. 10 hours a month is twice as much as 5. But yes is not twice as much as no. Female is not twice as much as male. So just making the point that categorical variables, the levels are just distinguished by a name, whereas in numerical variables, there we can put the values, the levels, in a hierarchy. So we're almost ready to go on that, and in order to not make this video too long, I will stop there.